So, here are a few things I've learned from being born into, raised in, and escaping one of the most internationally notorious religious cults. It was an apocalyptic sex cult. For over 20 years, I endured all kinds of abuse, cult control, including trafficking, and all kinds of manipulation and mental, physical, emotional, spiritual trauma that most people can't imagine. But here's what you need to know about it. I'm going to unpack the patterns of cults because these same patterns play out in society today. You can see them in politics, in religion, and a lot of corrupt organizations and nonprofits, which I now work with law enforcement to expose and bring down, and it's a lot of fun. So, every cult thrives on control. Fear and isolation are some of their main tactics. They make you believe there's no hope or life outside their walls, everyone else is wrong, and we're the only ones that are right. Society does not understand the difference, though, between kooky adults who decide to join a cult and children who are born and raised under that rock. That type of brainwashing, control, and manipulation that's so effective on adults, just imagine how effective it is on a child. You can't even imagine what it's like to, first of all, be that programmed and then to have the wherewithal to deprogram yourself enough to not only realize this is all lies, but also to escape into a world that has no support system for you, no security blanket, no soft place to land. And by the way, you're brainwashed to believe that everyone is evil and is out to get you, and you're probably going to die as soon as you go out there because you're going to be against God's highest will. So healing isn't just about leaving. And by the way, we can talk about like, where would a child trafficking survivor even go? Where's the support for survivors? Where is the safe place? Would it have been safer outside the compound walls? But escaping is not just leaving. It's about untangling your mind and reclaiming yourself. And how is that even possible if you've never had a untangled mind or known what it's like to be yourself? What if you've known nothing outside that world? So here's how I oversimplify it. Imagine being born and raised under a rock, and you're told that red is blue, and your entire life and everyone around you and every picture on the wall and book that you're allowed to read and music you're allowed to listen to and thing you're allowed to watch all says red is blue. So that's your normal growing up. And children are sponges, so they'll just go along with that because okay. But then at a certain age, especially if you have a very complex mind like me, you'll start asking questions and be like, I feel like red could be red sometimes. And what about in this case? It might make sense. And they're like, nope, you can't ask questions. You got to take it by faith. Just imagine what that's like to deprogram yourself as a child. And this is also why I have very little to no excuse for adults who should have known better. Because, like, look, I understand that people are vulnerable and searching community and they find their community in free hugs and yay God, so they join and then they just sort of buy in hook, line, and sinker, and they continue perpetuating these beliefs every day and then have kids and force those beliefs on their kids. So like I can understand that you were brainwashed. I'm just saying that's not an excuse, especially for grown-ass adults who should know better, especially because I was a child born and raised under that rock environment and I deprogrammed myself. So I have little to no excuse for grown-ass adults who should know better. But here's the real point. Cults have layers, and I've unpacked these layers before, but I wanted to make a shorter version so I could simplify it for people with a short attention span. These are what I call the 10 rules of every cult. Number 1, every cult has layers. The outer public layer is like a corporate brochure, so you see the happy smiling people, but you don't know what's really going on, and in fact, only the leadership really knows what's going on the inside. Number 2, it is written. Take it by faith. Don't ask questions. Number 3, we're the only ones who are right. Everyone else is wrong. We're the only ones chosen, whatever. 4, we make our own rules. What's done in love is love. We were told growing up that abuse was God's love. Those were their rules. Number 5, this is what's best. To this day, a lot of the adults that I was born and raised with would say that was God's highest will. That was the best way I could have raised my children. 6, recruit. Full stop. That's their whole thing. Recruiting is a huge part of whether or not they'll survive. 7, you must earn your place. Participation is not optional. You are not allowed to just be an observer. You have to be active participant. Otherwise, you're kicked out. So again, with the excuses that like, oh, I didn't know I was brainwashed. Don't buy it, especially never from leadership. 8, support. By whatever means necessary. Giving up your money, your family, your inheritance, whatever it is, because God's highest will and you have to. For most, if not all of these corrupt organizations and cults, donations are their lifeblood. So if you donate a lot of money, you can probably twist some rules and get away with it because money is power. Number 9, dedication. Do whatever it takes. Forsaking family and friends, making ridiculous sacrifices, God's highest will. Subjecting your children to all kinds of unimaginable abuse, God's highest will. Number 10, if you're not for us, you're against us. Now you tell me where else you've seen these patterns play out in society. If anyone else has survived a cult, I would love to know if I've missed anything or if there's anything else you'd add to this list. I've checked it with a lot of cult survivors. It's pretty spot on. Quite a few lessons we could unpack from this, but one of them is ask questions. And if you don't get answers, keep asking questions and trust your gut. Look, further into things, especially if there's like this happy perception of what they want you to see. I want you to peer behind that veil, especially if they're asking for money, dedication, or some sort of ridiculous sacrifice that is God's highest will or some sort of nebulous reason why you need to do this for God. The other lesson is hope. Just because somebody is entangled in this type of brainwashing, even if they were born and raised into it, doesn't mean there isn't hope that they can reclaim themselves, understand the truth, reconstruct all that crazy, and find healing. Now, what does healing even mean? That's an entirely other video. But healing is a choice, it's a personal journey, and it's something only you can decide to heal and the extent to which you allow yourself to heal. Now, here's another very important lesson that applies to most of society today. If you're very emotionally charged because of some narrative you've been told to believe, I do want you to question it. I want you to critically examine why you're so worked up about this. Who's telling you? Have you fact checked this? Is this something you've verified? Or are you letting them let you run wild with emotions and accusations or assumptions about something that may not really check out when you examine the facts? I want you to become much more interested in the why and the reasoning behind things, especially when a person or group of people are making a compelling argument telling you what to think and how to live your life, but they're not basing it with a lot of logic or facts. There's a lot of emotional responses that they're resorting to because the logic doesn't really check out. I want you to look further into these groups that have like movements or a lot of followers, especially these online type movements where they can go a little crazy. I'm not saying they're all harmful and they're not all cults, but I am saying you should always question things. You should always trust your gut. You should be very connected to your intuition. You should not follow along with things just because everybody's doing it or it's what they're pressuring you into, especially when there's a lot of narratives being used. I want you to examine more critically where the logic is. For anyone who was born and raised in any type of cult, especially religious cults, just know you're not alone. Unfortunately, there's so many of us, and a lot of us don't want to talk about it, but I just want you to know there's hope. I want you to know that whatever they did doesn't get to affect the rest of your life. You're not damaged goods. You're not broken. You're not a weirdo. We're different, and we have a unique advantage where we can see through people if we're really paying attention to it, and if we are connected to our gut instinct. We have a sixth sense that can help us weed through a lot of bullshit with people. I want you to know that there's a lot of hope, there's a lot of life beyond what you've been told, and even if you have bought into some unbased narrative or something that's like a lot of emotional charge but not a lot of logic, I want you to know you can always deprogram that. You can always search for and find truth. I want you to make truth your quest. And I want you to not internalize any type of shame or guilt or try to deflect the responsibility of whatever's in your past. I want you to know there's hope. When people come on real strong with their religious emotion, I just want you to observe them and ask yourself, what's their real goal here? What's their point? Because they're probably coming from a well-intentioned place and are just really bad at presenting it. But I want you to realize that these days with the internet, there are a lot of groups that have a lot of control over people's minds and use a lot of narratives or headlines to stir up a lot of emotion. But when you really look into the logic and the facts behind their argument or their demands, there's not a lot of structured logic there. So I just want to give this message to people who may observe these patterns in society, be it things like QAnon or religious organizations or other movements that seem to just really mislead people or just sort of carry them away with emotion. Cults thrive on fear and control. So if you're a grounded, self-confident person, you're not a good victim for them. You're not really going to fall for their tactics as easily. Cults look for people who are vulnerable, seeking community, and seeking a place of belonging. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I'm saying just be aware that there are predatory organizations that do prey on those vulnerabilities. And again, you see this in society today, be it religion or politics or other types of movements. People tend to go along with things that they may not have otherwise accepted because they want this belonging, this place of community and others who understand them or think like them. I'm not saying that's harmful, but I'm saying it can be dangerous when this person or group of people are telling you what to think and how to live your life. It's important that all of us learn to question things and also connect very closely with our instinct, our gut feeling. When things seem off, just listen to that gut feeling. Look into things more. Be willing to not only do research, but peer past the veil of whatever these organizations, these groups, these cults are showing you. It might sound pretty. They may be something catchy about it or some celebrity endorsing it, but that doesn't mean they have good intentions. That doesn't mean that their emotions are based in logic. It doesn't mean that what they're saying is actually factual or the actions they're demanding everyone take actually make sense when it comes to combating this issue or uniting around a cause. I think it's important to break the stigma around the manipulation and control tactics that these groups use because, first of all, it's very isolating for people who did buy into these ideologies. It doesn't result in a lot of support or understanding for them to sort of make that leap back to normalcy. But it also doesn't help survivors heal from it when we tend to shame it and sort of force this stigma around it. So I want you to know healing is possible. I want you to know it is possible to deprogram yourself, even if you were manipulated and brainwashed to that extent as a child. I want you to know there's hope. It is a personal decision. I believe that healing is a choice, and you're the only one who can decide to heal and the extent to which you allow yourself to heal. So that's a totally different video. But for anyone who's wanting to help someone or who's concerned about someone who might be falling prey to this type of manipulation tactics to whatever spectrum of intensity, just be patient with them, give them facts and logic, and just know that their emotions might be in turmoil right now and it's very likely confusing them. But if you extend that olive branch of support and help them know that there's a way they can come back, it might go a long way in helping them make that leap back to logic. So if this resonates with you or someone you know, I'd love to start this conversation in the comments and continue this dialogue. I think it's really important that not only survivors who were born and raised into these cults and organizations feel supported and know that they're not alone, but also so that other people that are sort of standing from the outside evaluating these organizations that look cool and inviting and fun know that there are some downsides to that type of control and manipulation. So share this with anyone who needs to hear it. Let's break the silence.